actually did want to share something that will hopefully be encouraging for real. So, that the Lord has encouraged me with, and long story short, I have been dealing with some very particular vices and issues for a very long time. And, I've been before the Lord about it for a very long time. And I've just been in this practice of surrender and just like confession and just, really trying my best to, live in a God-honoring way, right? Not to say that I wasn't in the past, but now it's just like at a different level now that I understand certain things differently. And when I say different, understand things differently, it's just, through deconstructing and spiritual counseling and just discipleship and just all of the things that, and all of the resources the Lord has provided me in this season of my life to help me understand my walk, my theology, and just my perspective and experience, differently. He took me to Mark 9, okay? And I'm just going to read it because I feel like if I read it, it'll give you more context to the point that I'm going to try to make by the time I get to the end. Bear with me. Okay, so the pericope, which is the mini title above the passage, it's called, it says all things are possible. So this is Mark 9, and I'm going to start from the 14th verse. It says, when they came back to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and some scribes arguing with them. Immediately, when the entire crowd saw him, they were amazed and began running up to greet him, talking about Jesus. And he asked them, "What are you disputing with them?" And one person from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought you my son because he has a spirit that makes him unable to speak. And whenever it seizes him, it slams him to the ground, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and becomes stiff. And I told your disciples so that they would cast it out, but they could not do it." And he answered them and said, "O unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him. When he saw him, the spirit immediately threw him into convulsions, and falling to the ground, he began rolling around and foaming at the mouth. And he asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. It has often thrown him both into fire and into the water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." But Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for the one who believes." Immediately the boy's father cried out and said, "I do believe. Help my unbelief." When Jesus saw that a crowd was rapidly gathering, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and do not enter him again." And after crying out and throwing him into terrible convulsions, it came out. And the boy became so much like a corpse that most of them said, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and raised him, and he got up. When he came into the house, his disciples began asking him privately, "Why is it that we cannot cast it out?" And he said to them, "This kind cannot come out by anything except prayer." So I'm going to stop there. Okay, so as I was talking to the Lord about my struggles, things that I've been struggling with since childhood and all of these things, and how the result of dealing with those things, how it shows up in my life or in my behavior and just who I am as a person, and how it affects me in my everyday life, asking the Lord to help me, you know what I'm saying? And in the same way that this father was desperate for deliverance for his son, you know what I'm saying? Because this unclean spirit or this thing, this affliction was affecting his son in such a detrimental way. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't talk, right? He was deaf, like he was getting thrown into convulsions. Like, principle is the same. It has such a influence on you that it's making you behave or, you know, act out of yourself, out of your natural, you know what I'm saying? And so I think, you know, the Lord, he took me through this passage or whatever. And when the Father said, you know, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. And Jesus is like, if I can, anything is possible if you believe, right? And the Father goes, I believe, help my unbelief, right? And then after Jesus rebukes the spirit and cleanses the boy of the spirit, and his disciples are like, why couldn't we do it? And Jesus is like, this kind cannot come out by anything except prayer, right? And so basically that's a call to consecrate and to pray. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's some things, y'all, in our lives and some things that we're dealing with that we've been dealing with for a long time. And it's affecting every area of our lives. It's affecting our relationships. It's affecting our relationship with the Lord, most importantly. And we're wondering why. We keep going to church. We're reading the word. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like we're not consistent in prayer and devotion and consecration. And I think there's certain things that such strongholds on us and in our lives, and things that, you know, just has so much power over us that it's just has such an effect on us where, you know what I'm saying, we're not showing up and being who God has called us to fully be because of the stronghold, you know what I'm saying? And I think the Lord is just kind of saying in this hour, like in this time, like it's time to really get in our prayer bag, bro. And if it's hard to believe, take that to the Lord and you know, and ask him, like the Father said, help my unbelief. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to trust, bro. Like, and we're believing God to do things for us in our lives, whether it's we're believing God for a partner, for a promotion, for, you know, a different, you know, for clarity, for God, whatever you could be believing God for. You know, the Father was believing God for healing, deliverance for his son. You know what I'm saying? There's things that's blocking that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because those things is creating unbelief in your life, you know, and it's, you know, making us live in such a way that's not God honoring, or that's not in a way that God can bring the thing we're asking for, because we're not the people we're supposed to be able to maintain that thing, if that makes sense. You know, we need some deliverance and some healing, you know. Everybody has their own, you know, things that they're believing God for, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's between you and the Lord, but I think the principle is the same. You know, at the end of the day, this kind cannot come out by anything except prayer. So you can volunteer all you want to, you can do all of the things, but if you're not actually talking to the Lord, having devotion, being with him, abiding, then I feel like there's some things that's gonna pass us by. And I just think I'm in that space, and you know, I feel compared to share that because, you know, maybe somebody else is in that space, you know what I'm saying? And so I just want to encourage us to pray and like be about it for real. You know, I probably sound very well informed, but no, it's just, you know, I'm choosing to believe and have faith, you know, and so my passion comes out. But I just want to encourage somebody else who may be struggling in certain areas, or in a lot of areas. Maybe you're struggling with faith, and this kind cannot come out by anything except prayer. the thing that's gonna help your faith is the prayer. And so maybe somebody is like, oh, I am praying. Well, keep praying, bro. You know, you just gotta keep endure. You just gotta keep going. Like, whatever the thing is, just keep doing it. And if you ain't doing it, start doing it. And then last thing, I saw this video. Somebody was talking about Job, and they were just saying how, you know, Job was complaining. Job was mad. He was hot for everything that he was going through, rightfully so. You know, and he even was asking the Lord questions and everything. And the God let him ask questions. And then when God responded, he kind of responded on some who is you? Was you there when I created the sun and the moon and the star? You know what I'm saying? But the point the guy was making, I was talking about Job, was, you know, as many things and emotions and, you know what I'm saying, seasons Job went through, and the wrestling and the suffering, he continued going to God. You know, he invited God in that process. He never left God in that. Don't leave God in your wrestling. Invite God in that wrestle. It's okay to wrestle with God. I think that's healthy. I think that's good. You know what I'm saying? But invite God in that wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't try to wrestle apart from him. Then you just gon' that's just not good. Like, that's where the enemy thrives. You know, your mind start getting creative. And it's just, you know, you may not understand everything. You may not know why. But, you know, expressing that to God could do more for you than not. You know what I'm saying? A great quote by Tony Evans. He says, you get rid of God, you still gonna have your problems. So know that you're not alone, and you know what you're going through, and God sees, God knows, and he loves you, and you know, he's your friend, bro. Talk to your friend. And yeah, that's it. But y'all be blessed, alright?